Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Clay, and I am the Bucks believer. This season, Giannis Antetokounmpo is playing in his first career NBA Finals, and so far in the series, he has been downright fantastic. Giannis has posted a double-double in every single game so far, including back-to-back 40-plus point, 10-plus rebound performances in games 2 and 3. Giannis is just the third player ever to have consecutive performances of this caliber in the NBA Finals, joining elite company in Shaquille O'Neal and LeBron James, two top 10 players of all time. Clearly, Giannis is playing at an insanely high level, and I actually think that there's a case that can be made that the Greek Freak is the single best player in the entire NBA today. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down the case for and against Giannis as the league's best player before comparing him to a few other superstars across the league, and then finally giving my conclusion as to whether or not Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the NBA. Let's start by talking about the case for Giannis. In order to make this conversation happen, I think we have to start by talking about Antetokounmpo's contributions on the defensive end of the court. Last season, Giannis won Defensive Player of the Year, and this year he backed that up by making the All-Defense first team once again. Antetokounmpo did a fantastic job for Milwaukee this season, playing his role as a weak side rim protector. Giannis ranked 23rd in block rate across the entire league, blocking 3.2% of opponent two-point field goals attempted with Giannis on the court. Ranking 23rd is certainly impressive, but it's even more impressive when you consider that Antetokounmpo doesn't play the 5 for the Bucks. Instead, he's playing the 4 most of the time, which is a position where you're mostly asked to defend on the perimeter and aren't given too many opportunities to block opponents' shots. However, in the Bucks' drop coverage scheme that they lean towards in the regular season, Antetokounmpo plays an incredibly important role as a weak side rim protector, where he's forced to stay in rotation and contest opponent shots at the basket whenever they're able to beat their primary defender. Antetokounmpo does this at a higher level than any other perimeter player in the league, and because of that, he ranks 5th among non-centers in block rate. So clearly, Giannis is one of the best defensive playmakers in the league when it comes to rim protection. And in addition to that rim protection, he's also a defensive playmaker when it comes to stealing the basketball. This season, Giannis posted a very high 1.7% steal rate, which is even more impressive when you consider that he ranks in the 88th percentile in the league in that metric, while not being someone who's defending the primary ball handler on the opposing team each and every night. Instead, Giannis is usually defending someone who is not necessarily going to be the biggest threat to score with the basketball. That's certainly been true in this series, as the primary person who Giannis has been defending has been either Jay Crowder or Mikal Bridges. This allows Giannis to help off of his defender frequently and do a nice job playing that weak side rim protector role that I talked about before. However, despite not guarding someone who's handling the ball often, Giannis is still able to post such a high steal rate because of his length and athleticism. He does a great job of jumping into passing lanes and knocking the ball away when the opposing ball handler gets a little bit careless. In addition to his defensive playmaking, Giannis is also great as a scheme defender, as his positional versatility allows his team to play a variety of schemes. Giannis is capable of playing either the 4 or the 5, and when he is playing the 5, his team is great when they're playing a switching scheme, because Giannis is one of the few players in the NBA who can genuinely guard every single position, 1 through 5. In this series, that has been proven to be true, as the Bucks have switched screening actions involving Antetokounmpo quite frequently, and that has led to him getting switched onto Chris Paul and Devin Booker quite frequently. Giannis has certainly held his own in these matchups, as he's done a great job of keeping those quicker players in front of him while forcing them to take difficult contested mid-range jump shots. Giannis's team can also play a drop coverage when he's on the court because of that helping weak side rim protection role that he plays at a very high level. In addition to his positional versatility allowing his team to throw some variety at the opponent on the defensive end of the court, it also helps the Bucks be quite random on the offensive end, where Giannis allows them to really play in a variety of different ways. The most common way for them in the regular season is with Giannis as the primary ball handler, and that's been a bit of an issue for the Bucks in the past, as they've been forced to play essentially 4 shooters alongside Antetokounmpo. However, this past season, we saw Coach Mike Budenholzer be able to substitute a dunker spot player into the Bucks offense, and a big reason for that was Giannis's improvement as a passer. This past season, Giannis ranked 22nd in assist rate, ahead of players like Kyrie Irving, and he does a great job of finding guys both on the perimeter and in the dunker spot for open looks, either for a layup or a three-point basket. In addition to this attacking from the top of the key, Giannis can score in a variety of ways, and he was quite successful as a scorer this season, ranking 4th in the NBA in points per 36 minutes at 30.7 points. Giannis also did all of this scoring in a very efficient manner, as he ranked 24th in true shooting percentage. That comes despite him having some struggles as a shooter, which we will get to later, but other than the jump shot, Giannis is basically capable of scoring in every single way possible. As I talked about before, he's one of the best isolation scorers in the game, as he does a great job of using his two primary moves, the Euro step and the spin move, to generate space for himself to have some easy finishes at the basket. He also is very good out of the pick and roll as a roll man, and also as the ball handler, as the Bucks run a lot of inverted pick and roll with either Bryn Forbes or Pat Connaughton setting the screen, and Giannis coming off of that screen with a mismatch, allowing him to really attack the basket at a high level. Giannis also has improved his post game, as he has a really solid turnaround jump shot, and also is capable of faking and shooting the up and under to get to the rim as well. Giannis also has gotten better at duck-ins, as he does a great job of sealing off his defender in the post and then catching easy passes for a dunk. So clearly, Giannis is one of the best scorers in the league, and when you combine that with him being, in my opinion, the single best defensive player in the entire NBA, you're already looking at a complete monster of a player. With all of that being said, there is a case against Giannis as the best player in the league. And that all really has to start and, in my opinion, end because Giannis is nearly a perfect player with his jump shot. Giannis shot just 30.3% from the three-point line on 3.6 attempts per game this season, and overall, he really struggles to space defenses out whatsoever, as he's not a viable three-point shooter at this point in his career. He also really struggles to make free throws, which is a shame because he's one of the top two players in the entire league, alongside Zion Williamson, when it comes to foul drawing. Giannis shoots upwards of 10 free throws in almost every game, and unfortunately, he's only able to convert those shots from the stripe at a 68.5% rate. If Giannis can improve his jump shot, he will become a nearly perfect player, and at that point, I don't really think that there's an argument against him being the best player in the league. But as of now, that jump shot still hasn't come along, so there's still an argument that can be made that Giannis isn't the top guy. And with that being said, let's talk about some other players that are considered superstars in today's NBA and that compare potentially favorably against Antetokounmpo. In my opinion, there are 5 other guys that are in the same tier of player as Giannis. These 5 players are Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Kevin Durant. Let's start by talking about Jokic because, in my opinion, he is the worst of this top tier of 6 players. And that's not a slight whatsoever on Jokic because he's genuinely one of the best players in the league. He won the MVP this past season, and that's because he's one of the 2 or 3 best offensive players in the entire league. He functions as an absolute post-up player for the Nuggets, and he's great as a hub, finding cutters and shooters while also being a huge threat to score. Jokic is definitely a better offensive player than Antetokounmpo because of the variety of ways he can score and find teammates, but he's a below average defender, and that end of the court counts for something too. When you're comparing someone who is a great offensive player but a average defensive player with someone who is a great offensive player and a historic defensive player, I think you give it to the second guy, and that is Giannis in this comparison, so I'm taking Giannis over Jokic at this point. The second guy here is Steph Curry. Curry is very similar to Jokic in that he's a great offensive player, but in my opinion, Curry is even better on that end than Jokic because of the gravity that he has as a shooter, as well as the threat he is to score the basketball in a variety of ways. He improved at getting to the basket, he's still the best shooter in the league, and he's also a very good playmaker. However, Curry is a bit of a liability on defense, as he does work very hard and has gotten better throughout his career on that end of the court, but he's still a small small guy, and those physical limitations prevent him from being as good of a defensive player as someone who works as hard as him probably should be. So to me, when you have a great offensive player, an average defensive player against a player like Giannis, who's great on both ends, I think you have to give the edge to the two-way player. So I'm taking Giannis over Curry as well. The next guy I'm going to talk about here is Kawhi Leonard. Leonard had a fantastic season for the Clippers that unfortunately ended with a partial tear to his ACL, but Leonard is perhaps the most interesting comparison to Giannis because he's actually almost as good as Antetokounmpo on defense. However, he's not as efficient as a scorer, and while he is a better distributor than Giannis, it's not as big of a difference as the scoring difference is from Antetokounmpo over Leonard. So once again, I'm going to take Giannis over Kawhi, especially when you consider the injury concerns that come with Leonard. The next guy here is LeBron James. James is a far better playmaker than Giannis, but he's not as effective on the defensive end or as a scorer. So for that reason, along with the injury concerns that once again come with James as he reaches the later years of his career, once again, I'm going to take Giannis. That leaves us with just one last player. It's Giannis versus Kevin Durant, and to me, these are the two best players in the league. They faced off in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and both of them were absolutely terrific. Let's start by talking about the defense. Durant plays a similar role to Giannis as a weak side rim protector, and he does an exceptional job of that as he's a really good shot blocker. He's also capable of defending on the perimeter, but I definitely think that Giannis is more impactful on defense and is better on defense, so I'm going to give Giannis a slight edge over there. Durant has a huge advantage as a shooter, and that's really where these two players can be differentiated. However, Giannis is still able to score despite not being as good of a shooter, and because Durant is once again limited by the injuries in a way that just hasn't happened with Giannis yet in his career, I think that I would probably rather have Giannis on my roster than I would Durant. So when you're going about this, thinking about which player you'd rather start a season with, which is how I like to go about ranking the top players in the league, I think Giannis is the single best player in the NBA today. That might be a bold statement, and there is some bias coming from that when you consider that I'm a Giannis fan and a Milwaukee Bucks fan in general, but that is my personal belief, and we'll see if Giannis can prove that to be true with some more historic performances as he potentially leads the Bucks to their first NBA Finals win since 1971. Be sure to let me know in the comments section down below who you think the best player in the NBA is. Do you agree with me that it's Giannis, or do you go with someone else? Is that guy KD, LeBron, Kawhi, maybe even Steph or Jokic? Be sure to let me know. Also, leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video, especially if you're a fellow Bucks believer. This is the place for you. I think that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover, so that's going to be it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.